talk a little bit about the fact that you said you don't have to be in Nairobi to be trading on the NSE, for instance. So I think a lot of our markets have seen a great influx of international investors. And of course, their interests are influenced by so many factors that are sometimes out of our control as well. So I think one of the key areas that a lot of people have been talking about is ensuring that local investors grow, and that boils down to the education, investor education. So what is the greatest hindrance in getting people to understand that this is a place that they can use to increase their savings, for instance, to grow their money, to increase their capital?
Well, it's a catch-22, that one. I think, as Africans, we believe in our cows. We believe in things we can touch, you see. So teaching someone about shares and teaching them about buying a shamba, like you say it in Swahili here, it's different. So it's very difficult to teach someone, to tell someone to buy things that are intangible.
Yes.
However, if they know they are using M-Pesa and Safaricom and they are educated properly and you use all the right channels, I think something we have been doing wrong. There's something we've not been doing right. That one would be probably the way we've been teaching people. We have younger generations now which are making some small money here and there. So I think the education might be taken to the grassroots, across the schools and everywhere. People need to be educated using maybe the right technologies and the right the infrastructure, whatever that is. When people talk about technology, it's not about the phone alone. So you can use any kind of means to reach people the way you do it in your country. I don't know what works in Kenya, but I think in Rwanda we have grassroots level movements where when government wants to pass on a message, there's a way you do it through our own Muganda. Every end of the month we have a cleaning day. Okay. And after that cleaning, across the country, every smallest entity of the country, grassroots, people meet. And with your neighbors and so on and so if there's a specific message, for example, you want to pass on, you pass it on through that channel. So I don't know what you use in Kenya, maybe chamas, things like that. So I think we need to rethink how we convey our messages, because the message we are giving is a good one.
Yes.
Because everyone knows that these economies of ours, East African community, the EAC region is the fastest growing actually on the continent as we speak. Some of the countries really are moving faster than the others, but in general, all of us together, and with Congo and the stability, showing up and coming more and more in the region, I think we have a growing economy, and our people need to be part of that economy. So you talked about now about the foreign influx. It's good to have foreign FDI.
Yes.
It's good to have people from far to invest in our countries, but it's also it's better for ourselves to actually convey the same message of saying, guess what, own a piece of Kenya, own a piece of that road in going to Namanga, if you are to talk about, and probably the best way to do that is using the infrastructure provided by structural products that come through the market. So it's a long way to go, but I think if our governments are serious about it, and including the governments, including politicians, churches, and us, the people in the industry, to work all together, because I don't think it's the job of the stock exchanges or the Capital Market Authority. It's also the work of the churchmen, the pastors and those priests and imams, and everyone, to be conveying the same message, because everyone knows that saving is something very important, and saving together collectively and investing together, we can even build all the infrastructure we need in this whole region, actually from the money we save ourselves. So but the message again needs to be spread how it is spread best in each jurisdiction. Okay. But starting from the same curriculum.
Okay.
So we need to standardize the kind of message we are giving, and we have to give the right message and to the right audience.
Absolutely. And something else that you mentioned, the different kinds of products that the securities offer across the board. So recently, the NSE, of course, did launch their futures market, the derivatives market, and this is supposed to deepen the extent to which investors can actually benefit, can grow, and further develop as well. So do you think that Rwanda is closer to getting to that point as well? How far is Rwanda from that?
Well, I think it was about time NSE does that, to bring those sophisticated products on the market. Derivatives markets are timely for the Nairobi market. Remember, this market has been around for more than 65 years now. So Rwanda, we are talking about 7 years. I'm not saying we cannot leapfrog. Definitely we will leapfrog. But look at our level of development. Our main concern is not derivative product, the derivative products necessarily, but it's something that we must be watching, and that's why we are here to keep learning and see where we can leverage. We can start interesting some of our sophisticated investors, for example, to start tapping into Nairobi directly, for example. We don't necessarily have to create one in Rwanda, but when time comes, when we have sorted out the main issues we are dealing with in our own market, and our main concern is to raise the capital needed to fund the economy, for example, in our market, and get more people on board. So in Nairobi, you have more people who have bought shares and bonds and all that, who have central depository accounts, who are investing already in the market for the past 65 years. So in Rwanda, 7 years. So we have a long way to go, but it doesn't mean we cannot leapfrog. We will, actually, where need be. So we just don't want to do it merely for fashion, because sometimes people make mistakes like that. You look at what people are doing and you just do it for fashion.
You don't want to be rash, of course.
We don't want to be rushing, but we are going to go step by step. Hopefully it could be in the next 4 or 5 years, I don't know. But the main focus now is to follow our own master plan, not to rush into anything at this moment necessarily. But we can start interesting some of the people we think they are ready for it, because I believe there are some investors in Rwanda who would be ready for this. Who need to diversify. They are sophisticated investors, institutional investors. There's nothing preventing them to start tapping into this. But the larger population needs to open a CSD account first, or a savings account. So financial inclusion is very important. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah. And finally, even as we wrap up, of course, Bank of Kigali was the first Rwandese firm to list on the NSE last year in 2018. And this sort of cross-listing brings, like you said, more semblance even between the exchanges across the region. But what more needs to be done on that level for there to be even greater collaboration between the exchanges within the region as we close up?
I think the exchanges are collaborating. I wouldn't say more than enough. We always have to do more in our lives. I don't think you are doing more than enough, never. So we keep working harder and harder. As much as you work, you need to improve what you are doing. However, that's not necessarily the work of the exchanges alone. It's the entire ecosystem. So that means the regulators, it means the listed companies. At the end of the day, the decision of Bank of Kigali to come to the Nairobi Securities Exchange is a decision of the Bank of Kigali. Equity Bank, the same thing. So I would probably call upon or urge the companies which are doing businesses across the borders to also start looking at doing, those who qualify, of course, to start looking at cross listings. You see the Safaricoms of this world, you see the other companies in Nairobi who are doing business across the region to start thinking about maybe cross-listing in the other markets, because the other investors across there, they also need to be also part owners of those companies, not only customers. So they can also own a stake in those companies. And it comes with different advantages, of course, also of marketability and visibility that is increased by dual listings and so on. So I think it's a concerted effort that everyone has to see themselves in, including policymakers and regulators and the issuers themselves, and the people will follow what you bring to their table.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all the insights and for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
That means it's time to take a look at the markets. Let's have a look at the figures that have come out of the bourse